once you have the two matching frequencies, you get a quantum entanglement between the two diodes, and they link between space and time. And then at that point, you can pump all kinds of signals through, and then it rides the fluctuations, and the fluctuations you create over here come in over here, so you get wireless transmission across time. Wi-Fi through time. That's what the Orion Cube is using. That's what they were doing without realizing what they were really doing in the Philadelphia experiment, which is true. Jerry Vassilato says an amazing thing that he wrote about that in his book. It's in my first book, Source Field Investigations. So the quantum entanglement is incredibly, incredibly exciting, because I didn't realize until the new briefings that it sends video through time, but of course it makes sense. If you can send data at all, you can send video data, because you can reduce it to zeros and ones. So what they would do is they would send these spheres through, do some reconnaissance, look at where they're going to go, and then they also had, the guys would have their own little QCDs, which is like a little BlackBerry kind of thing. It apparently does have a little keyboard on it that's a physical keyboard that you push with your fingers. It's not like an iPhone. And you can film, and you can do audio, and you can communicate with your ground team, and you'll see them, and you can have a voice chat, even though you're in the past and they're in the future. So that little piece added so much and explained what was really going on with Bruce. And of course, he didn't have the need to know. He didn't get all this stuff, but it all connects very nicely. So they can send you into the past, and you can talk to them, and they can see where you are. You don't bring any technology with you. That's a very important point. When you do time travel, you don't bring anything with you. And these guys would go into it. They can make a time bubble where you can spend a long time learning certain information, and then you come out and it's like you never left. So you might spend 6 months or a year learning ancient Latin. Once they've sent these spheres in, they look at Rome, and they look at ancient Rome, and they say, okay, this is how people are talking. We've analyzed the language. This is a dialect. This is their accent. These are the colloquialisms. These are the funny words they use. This is a curse word, you know. And so you learn it from the direct observation of the spheres. Which, by the way, the spheres were depicted in the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise very prominently. They also show up in They Live. Once the people put those the sunglasses on in the movie They Live, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. That's when they could see the little sphere going around, which you can't see with the naked eye. All that stuff is true, except again, the spheres are actually featureless on the outside to make it less obvious what they are if they ever crash, which apparently sometimes they do. Some people see orbs, and a lot of times these things will glow. So people see glowing orbs hovering over. That might be one of these surveillance devices, actually. And again, in this world, time doesn't really exist, and the extraterrestrials have mastered this eons ago, and we get the technology. So apparently the main thing that they started to do with these time travel programs, this is one of the most fascinating things I just learned about. If someone in the past, which we think is the past, right? We think it's old stuff. If someone in the past finds an extraterrestrial device that is a time travel device, where you hold on to these two things, or a lot of times it's a handheld thing, you hold on to it, and you think about where you want to go, and it creates a portal, and you walk through, and it takes you there. A lot of different beings have come and gone on Earth, and because in their world time travel is very ordinary, maybe they dropped one or something, and they left it behind. These guys were always going around scanning, trying to figure out if anybody could find these. Now, why does that matter? Let's say this guy in ancient Rome finds one of these devices. Let's say that he starts using it and he figures out what to do. That guy can change our reality. That guy can screw our entire timeline, because he could start going around just like in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or just like we saw in Doctor Who with the TARDIS. You can go around, you can alter things, you can change events, and then time gets screwed up. And it's actually very, very dangerous, because the past isn't really the past. You grab this machine, and now you're traveling through time. And you can alter our reality. And so these guys in these secret programs, and this has been ongoing ever since Montauk, they have to go out there and find where people are finding these devices, because what they'll notice is the Mandela effect. You know, something changes, something goes wrong, there's something's weird, and they can detect this. Actually, there's ways to detect changes in the flow of time having to do with isotopes and the way that isotopes are functioning, I guess, and the way they vibrate, the radioactive nature of the isotopes. They can detect fluctuations in the physics of our reality and the energy, and then they can actually detect where in time that might have happened. They send the little spheres through. So this is the other thing I didn't know about time travel that's very exciting. When they send these teams through, what they're doing is they train them in a language so that they give them the clothes. They create the portal, which again was probably based off of the Montauk research, very likely. They send you back in time, and once you get there, you have to figure out where in time you are. And so your little QCD device, your little pager thing, has all this cool technology in it, where you detect things like the radioactive emissions from the sun, the decay rate of radioactive isotopes that naturally exist in the atmosphere, the electromagnetic field, the gravitational strength, all these very particular things which allow them fairly, and they also will look at the stars and look at the positions of the stars, and they could be there for a couple of years. They create something called a hub. They go into the hub, that's where they portal in, and they will have their native, they hardly bring any technology at all, but they stay in touch with the QCD, and a lot of times they'll disguise a QCD in something that's period appropriate for the time. They cannot screw around at all. All they'll usually do is go find the guy. They got to target the guy who found the device, or the woman, and they got to steal it before they figure out how to use it. But when they start using it, you can detect that in the present, because again, quantum correlation means all time fluctuations can ultimately be detected in some way. So when people power it on, things change, and they can see that. Uh-oh, we got to grab that thing before they go back and do it. Now, theoretically, you say, well, wait a minute, that was the past. They already did it. No. The past isn't fixed. The past changes, and we don't know because we're not seeing it anymore, right? The only thing that absolutely exists is the present, and it's an everlasting present. So events that we think happened in history might now have changed. And that was one of the things that really tripped them out, is that historical events do not necessarily still happen. In other words, you go into the past, and it might be that different things are now happening, or that historical events for a particular time have now altered, or that the date is different because people didn't write down the right date. So you got to make an approximate jump to the approximate location. You create your hub, which is just it's like a cave or something underground, a hidden spot where you go to meet and use the QCD and talk to your people. You figure out where you are in time, you calibrate everything, the sun, the emissions of radioactivity, the star positions, etc. Then you calibrate exactly where you are in time, and then they can send you exactly where you need to go. So another portal opens up, you walk through it, and now you know you're in the right time. You create your hub, and you might need to spend a year or two speaking the language, talking to the natives. Nobody knows where your hub is. You don't go there very much. You occasionally go back to give a progress report, video chat, just like Skype or Zoom to the future, because again, there's no real time. It's all simultaneous.